The trade deadline is upon us, and Joe and I compiled a list of 27 guys we think might be on the move during this trade deadline. And Joe and I made predictions, each of us, about where each of these guys is going to go. Joe, we're going to start here with Tanner Scott. I'm going to let you have the floor to start this one.
I think this is a good one for me to kick it off with. He's going to your Kansas City Royals. I think the Royals are going to shore up the back of their pen even more and really, really give it a go at this deadline. I've got Tanner Scott going to Kansas City.
Interesting. I went a different route for the Royals during this deadline. I have him going to the Texas Rangers.
Oh.
Yeah, I have the Rangers trying to make something out of this thing. And especially with guys like, I almost said Jace Young, Josh Young coming back. Obviously, Simeon really hasn't hit his stride. Seager has been good, but not great. You have guys like Scherzer and DeGrom coming back as well. I think they go out there, they shore up the back end of that bullpen even further than they already have by adding guys like David Robertson and Kirby Yates.
Okay.
And I think that adding Tanner Scott would be a good way to do that.
Okay.
With that being said, another guy for the Marlins, Joe, is Andrew Nardy, a guy I like quite a bit. So I have him going to your Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, I did not follow that same route. I figured you might. I have the Brewers picking up Nardy here, giving Devin Williams returning soon. Another Josh Hader-esque lefty. Maybe not the same type of stuff, but a quality lefty in the back end of that pen to help propel them to an NL Central Division title. Colton, we're going here to Tyler O'Neill for me on my list. I have the Red Sox holding on to Tyler O'Neill. I say not traded.
See, so that was one of the things, that was where I was at. I thought about sending JD Martinez to the Red Sox, like a homecoming. But instead, I'm like, you know what? They're going to trade Tyler O'Neill last year of his contract. And you know where he's going, Joe?
Where's that?
Seattle Mariners.
Oh, boy.
Homecoming for Andrew Nardy and for Tyler O'Neill. Well, not Andrew Nardy, but he's coming to Seattle.
Yeah, I agree.
Homecoming for Tyler O'Neill. Put him in left field and maybe platoon him with Dom Canzone out there. This kind of takes Mitch Haniger a little more out of the equation. You have Luke Raley probably more so in right every day, and then go from there. So Elias Diaz, Joe, the man himself who was the All-Star Game MVP at T-Mobile Park, Joe. But I have him going to the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's so interesting. I had Cardinals down because sure, Contreras is out. They've got a young guy in Herrera back there. He's doing okay, but I almost went with it, but instead I have the Texas Rangers going and getting Elias Diaz.
Andrew Knizner sucks.
He's not been good. Sure, you've got Jonah Heim, but I think this could be a situation how the Astros went and got what was his name? Twins. Christian Vasquez. That is a move that I'm likening this to, and I think Diaz to the Rangers to a bench bat, DH every once in a while, also catch. That's where I'm going with for him.
Yeah, and I like the Rangers pick. I think that's a good one just because Knizner's bad. So moving on now to Brandon Lowe. Brandon Lowe, Joe. I have him not getting traded.
Interesting. The Rays holding on to him. Is it because they don't find a suitor?
Partly, yes.
Okay. I have him going somewhere. I have him going to Cleveland. I have the Guardians picking up Brandon Lowe. Just a bench bat type guy to potentially bolster that lineup. Someone that can go in there. He's got some pedigree. He's got some experience. Sure, Andres Jimenez is there, but Lowe can go play an outfield spot for you if you need to. It's similar in my head to almost like some of the Braves deadline moves in 2021. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Because of what I do later on, I think that they hold on to him. Okay. With that being said, we didn't put Randy Arozarena on this list.
Correct.
Do you think he gets moved?
No.
I agree.
I don't think he gets traded.
What about Eric Fetty? He's more than likely going to get moved at the deadline. Where do you have Eric Fetty going?
I have the Atlanta Braves making a trade for Eric Fetty. Not going after the big one for the White Sox there. They do have an extra year with Fetty. After this one, if they don't re-sign Max Fried, Fetty could be someone in that rotation next year as well. Waldrop just got put on the injured list. I feel like it makes sense in my head. Get him onto a contender, especially with the Braves. He's got a lot of protection around him. I've got Fetty to the Braves.
So I have Eric Fetty going to the Houston Astros.
Oh.
They have talked about how they plan to add 2 starting pitchers at the deadline. And I think that Fetty is one of them that they add, which kind of hints at another one I have coming up here. But Eric Fetty to the Astros, I think he kind of shores up that rotation. Obviously, they've had horrible injuries in that rotation the entire season, which is a big part of why they've been so bad. I mean, Spencer Spaghetti had to pitch. Justin Verlander just went back on the injured list. Obviously, we know the struggles with Hunter Brown, although it seems like he may have figured it out recently. Framber's kind of been hit or miss. So I think a guy who's having a good year like Eric Fetty would just be a good guy to add to that rotation. Brings us to Michael Kopech, another White Sox, Joe. I have him going to the Yankees. Them going out and getting a flamethrower to add to the back end of that bullpen with Clay Holmes. Where are you at?
I think the Yankees adding to the pen does make sense. I have the Braves doubling down, getting Fetty and Kopech in this. It's definitely just part of the same trade. Not going to make a mock for it, but Fetty, Kopech, both Atlanta Braves, in my opinion, really trying to either claw back in the NL East against the Phillies, or obviously they're going to make it into the playoffs, have the best opportunity they can to have a long run through the wild card, division series, everything like that. So I've got Kopech to Atlanta.
I think that's a good shout as well. Paul DeJong, Joe. I have going to Los Angeles Dodgers to replace Mookie Betts.
Okay.
And then when Betts comes back, Paul DeJong's a good kind of utility guy for them.
Sure. I've got a return. I've got Paul DeJong back to Toronto. I've got the Blue Jays trading for Paul DeJong, and it'll make sense later.
Okay. Interesting. Will it?
Yeah.
All right. So for me then, Joe, I have Taylor Ward as a guy. This is one that I struggled with as like, who do I send to Philadelphia?
Oh.
And I ended up with Taylor Ward going to Philadelphia. I feel like he's a guy who makes sense in that outfield. They've talked about adding an outfielder. I know there was lots of talk about Luis Robert. I know there was lots of talk about Jazz Chisholm. But I think that Taylor Ward's the guy that makes sense in Philadelphia with that lineup. It's not the splashy move that everyone's going to want from the Phillies, but I think it's a move that just kind of makes that team, it raises the floor of a team that's already really not overperforming, performing very well so far this year.
Yeah, I've got, I think, another team probably overperforming to a lot of people's expectations. I've got the Guardians going out and getting Taylor Ward. Sure, getting a legit bat in that outfield. Not to say that Stephen Kwan isn't a legit bat, but someone to play the opposite corner over there in right field very consistently. They haven't seen, I don't want to say they've seen great production out of their right field ever since Oscar Gonzalez in his rookie year 2 years ago. So Taylor Ward, for me, if he's getting moved, I think the Guardians, I kind of like it. But again, I'm no expert. Neither are you. I'm going to point fingers here, all right? None of us are experts. You guys in the comments, probably not experts. And that's the hard part with coming up with trade destinations for who's going to be buyers, who's going to be sellers, everything like that. Because one, I mean, we're only in June. Like, there's still a little bit of time for this to develop. So all of these really just have been like educated guesses. Now, have you ever thought about being in a position to make these trades yourself? What does it take to become a GM or work in sports? It starts with education. Justin Hollander, current Mariners GM, has a law degree. He actually practiced law for 4 years before pivoting into sports. But let's talk about a degree that is specifically designed to turn a passion for sports into a career. Southern New Hampshire University's Sports Management Program. Thank you to SNHU for sponsoring this video. In this program, you'll learn about the business and economics of sports, sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data. This degree can help you for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, and other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be able to tap into SNHU's network of graduates working in sports-related organizations, and you'll have the opportunity to take advantage of an internship or experiential learning course within the field. SNHU is accredited, nonprofit, and has radically affordable tuition. So if you aren't happy in your current job and are considering a career change, why not follow your passion for sports? You can go to snhu.edu/Mariner or click the link in the description of this video to see if you qualify for SNHU's sports management program and connect with a real person who can help answer any questions you may have.
And thank you to SNHU for sponsoring this video. So, Joe, a guy that we've seen pretty recently with the Oakland Athletics is Austin Adams. I think he's probably going to get moved.
Yes.
And with an extra year of control on him, I have him coming back, Joe.
Austin Adams, a Seattle Mariner, huh?
Yep, him and Andrew Nardy are going to be the guys out of that bullpen at the trade deadline here. along with Santos coming back and Logan Evans coming up. I think that makes the bullpen into what we all thought it was going to be in the first place.
That is a crazy deep bullpen. Like, you're kicking out Voth, potentially. You mentioned the Yankees getting a flamethrower and Michael Kopech. I've got Austin Adams going to the Yankees this deadline. I think it's a situation similar to your Kopech pick, getting a legit arm at the back of that pen to pair along with Clay Holmes. I feel like the Yankees and the A's have made trades in the past, so Austin Adams, get ready to shave your beard.
A name that I heard that I just saw signed somewhere yesterday was James Caprillion. And I'm like, oh my God, what a throwback.
Take me back.
We're moving on now, Joe, to a guy who I have mocked as a possibility to the Seattle Mariners. That's Harrison Bader. I have Bader going to the Atlanta Braves as more of a bench role kind of late inning defensive replacement guy who can do a few things for you in the batter's box as well, but he's there for his defense and his speed.
Yeah, I originally had the Braves going out and getting Harrison Bader as well. I then changed it to not traded because the gay Mets are playing great.
Mm-hmm.
I now have him going to Milwaukee. I have stumbled upon the NL Central leading Brewers to try and run away with that division come the deadline. They've got Churio. They've got Frelick. But right now in center field is Blake Perkins. They need, I think, to go out and get someone that could be a little bit more bona fide. And if it ends up being a more like bench role, like not even platoon, but like a guy that's not in your everyday lineup fixture, I think Bader can be a spark plug in that way. He's playing great for the Mets. So Milwaukee, welcome.
Luis Severino, speaking of the Mets, Joe, is a guy who's performed really well this year after a few down years with the Yankees. I am sending him to Houston as well as the second arm, the second starting pitcher that they go out and get at this trade deadline. I'm not sure how much it would cost, but with how well he's pitching, it would cost quite a bit. So interestingly enough, I have the Mets selling.
You do.
And this could all change very quickly. Obviously, again, with how good the Mets are playing right now and how the the National League wild card is shaping up, it's a toss-up. And so I think that because of that, they may end up holding on to a lot of these guys. But for now, I have Severino being traded to the Astros.
The Mets are the hardest team, I think, to predict for because they've got a lot of pieces that make sense to trade. They've also got a lot of young guys that could be knocking on the door. And for me, Severino to the Astros is one that I think is our first agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I have Severino to the Astros as well. It's Astros / not traded. Like, it was 50-50. I'm also going with the Astros. I don't think two arms, but I've got that one for Severino. They're reuniting that trade from last year. Obviously, they made the trade for Verlander. They're revisiting. I don't know what it's going to cost, but I'm sure the Mets and the Astros can reach some sort of agreement. Colton, this next one, we're staying in the National League East as far as trades are concerned. Nick Senzel, not Nick Solak, current third baseman, outfielder in the past. This, for me, is a budget pickup for the Minnesota Twins to stay in the wild card hunt. Royce Lewis out of his world when he's healthy. Having Nick Senzel as like an insurance policy to Royce Lewis, very different players, very different peaks. But Senzel's playing very well this year, and I think that is a move that makes sense for me for the Twins.
So I have him going to the Midwest as well. However, I have him going to the Brewers. As mainly maybe to play a little bit more outfield, but you can still stick him in that infield as well. Obviously, like you said, they need a center fielder, and Senzel is not that. But I think that in addition of a bat to that lineup, it doesn't really matter who it is. They need to add bats to that lineup. Yeah. If they want to hold on to that division, because right now, obviously, the Cardinals are right there. Who else is right there?
I mean, that entire division is like, I think the Cardinals are 6 back, and then everyone else is a half or 1 game back of the Cardinals. Like, the Cubs, I think, are in last place just because they've been playing relatively bleh ball lately.
Adding to that, offense going to the Midwest, Joe. I have Jesse Winker.
Say it.
Going to the Royals.
Yes! Let's go! Him and Adam Frazier reuniting
Yes.
for the 2024 Royals. I also have Jesse Winker going to the Kansas City Royals. Oh, that makes me so happy that we lined up on that one. That's so sick. Yeah,
I thought about sending him to the Braves, but I'm like, I don't know if him and Kelenic want to get back together.
Yeah,
Like,
probably not. Yeah, my big moves, big air quotes, Tanner Scott and Winker to the Royals at this deadline, I think definitely pushes them into a very big threat in a wild card series, even enough to potentially chase down the Guardians.
so moving on now to Jesus Luzardo, a guy who we added kind of late.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he probably will get traded. I don't know how much control he has left, but with the Marlins, I have him going to the Baltimore Orioles.
I also have the Orioles for Jesus
Okay.
Luzardo. We're catching our stride right here. They need another guy with Kyle Bradish going on the shelf. Luzardo's had a very up and down year for Miami, but I think that's just Miami in general. I think if you get him onto a contender, a legit contender like the Orioles, him being the, not even have to be the one, maybe not even the two, because you've got Burns and Rodriguez. I think him as a 3 or like a 2A 2B, but with Grayson Rodriguez, Luzardo makes a lot of sense for the Orioles.
Yeah, and I think that losing Dean Kramer is another big one for them as well. Overall, that rotation just needs some help. Corbin Burns was a good start, but they just need more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joe, a very popular Mariners trade target in Isaac Paredes. Do you have him going to Seattle?
I do. I have the Mariners picking up Isaac Paredes, filling out third base, maybe moving Rojas over to second. He's played defensively great there last year. He's been great defensively at third. I don't think there's a reason for me to think that that will change when he moves back over to second base. I'm not super concerned about it. And you've also got Jorge Polanco. So it's like you can even move Rojas into the outfield. Like it just lengthens your lineup, deepens your bench. Like the bench as it stands right now for the Mariners is not great. There's some guys in there that can play, but it's just not perfect. And getting Paredes definitely just moves Dylan Moore, Rojas into a more utility spot where, yeah, they've seen good success in regular innings, but I like going out and getting a back-to-back 130 OPS plus or WRC plus guy from the Rays. Like the Rayleigh trades, I think looking pretty good for us in general. Why can't we double dip?
And Paredes has been a guy who's been talked about a lot by Mariners fandom, including even MLB executive Burner or whatever it was, saying Felnin for Paredes 1-for-1. I don't know if that works, but I think it's interesting because that's one of the reasons why I have Brandon Lowe not getting traded. Because who else are they going to put in that infield? You know, yeah, Caballero having to go play. I mean, Taylor Walls might be back, but
I mean, Junior Caminero.
Yeah, I think he's hurt, isn't he?
If he is, news to me. So,
well, yeah, there's that.
I think, like, if anything, like, the Rays maybe don't see themselves in it, and they're maybe not worried about who's going to go play the infield.
True. So that moves us on to, I think, our big guys now, in my opinion. These are the ones that I had listed separately. I tried to be as honest as possible. All right. So just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this. Starting with JD Martinez, Joe, I talked about a homecoming earlier with the Boston Red Sox. It's not a homecoming for the Red Sox. He's going home to Arizona to play for the Diamondbacks, a guy who was talked about a lot during the offseason heading into Arizona, a team that has been pretty hot and relatively hit or miss, though, when it comes to the wild card right now. And I think that they're a team that could use a bit more offense. They've had decent starting pitching, but their offense could use a little bit of help, and I think that JD Martinez in that lineup would be a big boost for them.
I kind of disagree. I think pitching would be their big thing they need. Gallen's injured, Kelly's injured, Jordan Montgomery's been bad. The third outcome for Severino for me earlier was Diamondbacks. It was Astros not traded, Diamondbacks in my head. I have Martinez not getting traded. I think he's been very integral to the Mets coming into their own and playing for that wild card. It's a situation where they could fall off in the next week or so and everyone's getting traded. But as it stands right now, I've got a decent amount of the Mets staying pat. I am not trading JD Martinez.
See, that's the thing. That's where you and I differ. I think the Mets are selling.
Yeah.
And so I have them trading everybody, including Pete Alonso.
Same.
Get to that in a second. Brent Rooker, Joe.
Yeah.
Another guy who's been talked about a lot for the Mariners. Where you got him going?
You mentioned JD Martinez going to the Red Sox. I've got Brent Rooker to the Red Sox. I think getting a guy out there in the outfield along with Duran and Tyler O'Neill, maybe go and play DH a little bit. You can probably get away with sliding him over at first. He played minor league innings at first base if you really needed him to, with Cassis not being fully back yet. I've got Rooker going to Boston, poking some homers down the pesky pole over the green monster. The Red Sox are in a position to not fully buy, but buy some guys that have a little bit more club control going forward.
I see. It's wrong because he's going to the Royals.
Oh, that's dirty. That's disgusting.
You think so?
That's just nasty. Your outfield is what?
Who cares?
MJ Melendez in center?
You could have him DH.
DH, yeah.
Sal's been playing a lot of first base.
Yeah.
So,
it'll be interesting.
At the same time, Kyle Isbell's been terrible.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying like who's gonna like. I'm more worried about the defense. Like if you got Winker, you've got a trio of outfielders in Melendez, Winker, and Rooker that need innings in the outfield. Probably that defense is going to be rough.
Yeah, man. They got to add some offense somehow, baby. True. And they got good enough pitching to maybe be all right.
Yeah.
Who knows? Moving on now to Mason Miller, Joe. I have him not getting traded.
A hot commodity.
I think the Athletics are going to ask way too much for him, and they should. But I think that the asking price for him is going to be too astronomical that nobody is going to be willing to meet the price that the Athletics want. And that's going to be a common trend here for the next couple.
I don't have as many not tradeds in the final bit here, I don't think. Because I've got the Dodgers going out and getting Mason Miller, adding him into LA. I think if there's a team that might be crazy enough that could potentially have the capital, just in terms of persuasion, maybe, I think the Dodgers could get it done. And I think adding him as your, maybe not, he doesn't have to be a closer, he doesn't have to be your guy, but he could be. You could then start another generational run of great closing pitching in Los Angeles. Don't think they've really had it fully since Jansen left.
Garrett Crochet, we've talked a lot about recently. We've seen how good he is. He's another one that I don't think gets traded. Not this year. I think that they keep him this year because he has so much control left. And that depending on what the White Sox want to do, if they do want to sell off some of these guys, but they want to make it a quicker rebuild in the next couple of years, he's still a guy that could be around.
Yeah.
If, let's say, they decide to do it in 3 years. So I think that Crochet stays and kind of is the guy at the front end of that staff, because the pitching staff's going to look pretty good in a few years. I mean, we had that Drew Thorpe, Jonathan Cannon, Garrett Crochet. Like, if they build it similar to how the Mariners did with their pitching staff, they could quite literally do the same kind of blueprint that Jerry Dipoto used with the Mariners and rebuilding them, and going out there and getting guys, but having a good nucleus of starting pitching to kind of be the beginning of that plan.
I think the one reason where he probably doesn't get traded, and why I can agree with you here, is the innings limit is probably going to scare a lot of people off.
Yeah.
But a team that probably doesn't care, they need to go in and win a World Series this year. They've got enough starting pitching right now where they don't even need him to be a starter right now. The Phillies are going to go out and get Garrett Crochet. They can use him as a weird swingman out of the pen if they want to. Give him 2-3 innings every start, or like every couple of days. Have him be an opener. Spencer Turnbull is a guy that was great for them at the beginning of the year, moved into the bullpen because Taijuan Walker came back. I think the Phillies have a lot of creativity available to them with length. I think they could piggyback Crochet and Turnbull together, and that is something that I don't know many other teams can really manufacture. And so, as far as an innings limit is concerned, I don't think the Phillies would really care because they don't need all those innings. They're not desperate for them like other teams might be.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And the Phillies rotation has been great, like you said. Their bullpen's been pretty decent as well, but adding Garrett Crochet back there if they wanted to could really shorten games for them. Jazz Chisholm, the most overrated player in baseball, even voted on by baseball players. I have him not being traded because the Marlins are going to ask for so much for Jazz Chisholm, and he is not worth what they're going to ask for him. You're paying for the name, you're not paying for the ball player. And frankly, he's not good enough to be on half of these teams for what they need.
So there's going to be a trend where these guys weren't paired up together in the list, but Jesus Luzardo and Jazz Chisholm are both going to the Baltimore Orioles this deadline.
Wow.
Jazz Chisholm is going to go and replace Cedric Mullins, who's having a very down year in center. If there's a team that has the prospect capital that they don't necessarily need It's the Baltimore Orioles that could go get that trade done and really run at a division title against the Yankees and likely put themselves in a great position to be AL favorites potentially. If you go out and get Jazz Chisholm, who, if he's playing to his career, which is when he's healthy, he's been okay. He's overrated, sure, but like, you're paying for the name, yes, but it's better than what Cedric Mullins is giving you right now. Do they have it just in house? Potentially. But I think if there's new ownership in Baltimore that maybe want to go out and see a big splash happen, go catch 2 big Marlins, baby.
I agree with the sentiment about new ownership and a big splash.
Yeah.
I don't like the joke.
I'm sorry.
It was actually pretty good. Pete Alonso, Joseph.
Uh-huh.
I said I have him being traded because I'm trading all of the Mets. This was a hard one. And I think this might be not a good take for me.
Okay.
I think he gets traded to the Houston Astros.
Hey, Colton, just gonna let you know I'm with you on the bad take.
You're with me that it is a bad take.
And I'm on that same train that I have him going to Houston.
Let's go. Yeah. John Singleton over there at first base. Obviously, Jose Abreu's gone now. Pete Alonso, if the Astros, what I think they're going to do, they're going to add to this team. They're going to make one more run at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know Kyle Tucker is going to be leaving soon. We know Bregman's leaving soon, assuming these guys aren't re-signed. With how bad their starting pitching has been, if they want to extend this window, I mean, this is the year. Like, they need to go out there and make big moves this year, because honestly, when it comes, we've seen how bad they've been. The Astros are no longer this high and mighty team. And over the next few years, that's going to continue. They're going to continue that decline. And they don't have the prospects down to the minor leagues to be able to call them up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not those guys. They traded them all away. And the guys they do have left, the Mets know the Astros system quite well right now. And I think that is why they go out and add Pete Alonso.
Yeah, this is a Alonso Severino package for me. Another first baseman, Colton, north of the border, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I have not traded.
Same.
Yeah, I don't think there's a market for what the Blue Jays would want. And I also think trading him would just be a bad decision from the Blue Jays in general.
Mm-hmm. And I'm in the same boat with Bo Bichette as well. I don't think he gets traded either.
Oh.
You do. So you have them keeping Vladdy but trading Bo Bichette.
Yeah, because they traded for Paul DeJong to fill out shortstop because Aurelvis Martinez is potentially, their shortstop of the future. It's a situation of like a buying and selling kind of vibe that the Mariners did last year. So I've got them kind of retooling. They're trading Bo Bichette to the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to go out and get Bo Bichette to be their shortstop, so Mookie Betts no longer has to be there. It's weird. I feel like they don't.
Young's going to be there.
Where? in Los Angeles? Yeah. I think they want a more long-term solution to shortstop as opposed to a potential 1 year, and getting Mookie out of the infield or maybe just back over to second base. It's not been particularly sharp at shortstop for him. Getting him back into the outfield, I think, would be better for the Dodgers long term.
I'm just in a similar boat with the Blue Jays that I am with the Astros. Mm-hmm. Like, they're gonna take one more crack at this thing with the current core that they have. Speaking of the Astros, then, Joe, Alex Bregman.
Yeah,
I think that it's pretty clear where I'm going there, and that's that they're going to hold on to him.
So I'm in a similar situation with the Blue Jays. I think they retool. They get a little bit of what they can out of some of their players that maybe they don't expect to return. A team that I think could use some good third base depth. Bregman's wearing pinstripes come this deadline. He's going to the New York Yankees.
They hate each other.
Correct. I was just getting fun with it. I think a team that needs some third base help, like, who was it? Osvaldo Cabrera. Like, sure. They could trade him to the Astros and they'd be fine. You know what I mean? They get some maybe guys to lengthen the window in other positions as opposed to some of the guys that they're buying at first base with, like, Pete Alonso, to then, like, retool later down the line. So, yeah, Bregman's a Yankee. Just going to throw that out there.
Okay. I actually want to talk about then Kyle Tucker next instead of the big one.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the Astros. Uh-huh. And is he a free agent this offseason or next offseason? Next, right? I, again, have him not being traded at the trade deadline. I thought about sending him to the Philadelphia Phillies, but who did I send there to play the outfield for him? Taylor Ward. And so I think that Kyle Tucker makes sense, but again, I'm sticking with the idea that the Astros are going to stick this out for the rest of the season, and then maybe it's in the offseason that they trade Kyle Tucker. But I think obviously he's hurt right now is another big part of it. He's having an MVP caliber season when he is healthy, so they might hold on to him just until they see what the rest of the season holds for them.
Yeah, I also do not have them trading him.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of shenanigans, obviously, with how buying and selling kind of works.
It's a fine line.
It's a fine line, and I think with getting pitching back from the Mets, along with Pete Alonso, trading away Bregman, keeping Tucker, like I think they still feel that they could be in a good position to compete in that situation. So, yeah, Tucker, unfortunately, will not be wearing Northwest green. He is not a Seattle Mariner. But the final guy, Colton, Luis Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's not wearing Seattle.
Yeah. No. The guy that has been the most talked about in trades to the Seattle Mariners. We just saw him recently in the Northwest when the White Sox were in town. Luis Robert, I feel like will be traded.
I agree.
I'm interested to hear where you think he's going to be traded.
I can let you know that a White Sox has already been traded to this team earlier in this video. It is a package deal. It's going to take a lot of capital. I'm doing a lot of MLB The Show trades, and that's okay. I've paired together Chisholm and Luzardo. I paired together Fetty and Kopech. I paired together Alonso and Severino. And the Philadelphia Phillies are going to go out and get Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert and make a run at that championship. Bryce Harper, he's got to go win a championship in Philly. Those are the two moves that I feel like the Philadelphia Phillies front office can pull off and would make them about as complete of a World Series contender that you could make at the deadline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that would make, the Phillies would be so OP. That'd be a hell of a team, which is why it's not happening.
Yeah, it doesn't make. It's too much on script.
Because instead of Jazz Chisholm, the Orioles are getting Luis Robert. To go play center field for them every day when he's healthy, and they have the prospects to do it. If anybody can match the Soto package that the White Sox say they want, it is the Baltimore Orioles. And adding him to the middle of that lineup, I think, along with them needing pitching, of course, which we've talked about, adding him to the middle of that lineup makes, again, it's still a wild card run, more than likely. They could, I think they're only 5 games back of the Yankees, right?
They could chase the division for sure.
They could chase them down. I don't know if, just Luis Robert does it. Obviously, we had Jesus Luzardo. I had Jesus Luzardo going there as well. So I think that adding both of those guys gives this team a legitimate chance the rest of the way to chase down the Yankees and win that division still. And I think that the upside that he brings over a guy like Jazz is, in my opinion, the kind of splashy move like you talked about that the new ownership would want to go out and make. A move that shows the new ownership is here to play. They're not just messing around. They're ready to go out and make the big move if it's necessary, and it is. And I think that Luis Robert is that guy. Because we're Mariner Mojo, Joseph, I had Andrew Nardy, Tyler O'Neill, Austin Adams, and Isaac Paredes all heading to the Mariners in this deal. So you add 2 guys to the bullpen, you add a third baseman, you add an outfielder. Do you think that my packages to the Mariners here are enough?
Yeah, I honestly think that might be, I don't want to say too much because you can never add too much, but I don't know if they'd go 2 relievers. I think 3 out of those 4, or even 2 out of those 4 with maybe another guy from a different team that's not in this list because maybe he's not a high profile guy. Would make a lot of sense. I think Paredes, we both agreed on. I think it's being talked about. Whether that means anything, who knows? But I think Paredes makes a lot of sense. I would like them to add a reliever. I just don't really feel the fit in any of these guys other than, Nardy was the closest one. But I think you're on the right track with where they're probably going to add to or add outside of the organization with. You know what I mean?
Who'd you have?
Just Paredes.
Just Paredes to Seattle. So you think
out of these people,
right,
I still
out
think
of the people,
I think Paredes and then 2 guys from the Tigers could be possible. I think Paredes and a Veerling and an Alex Lang or Justin Foley could be in the cards. But obviously, the Tigers players didn't make the list.
Yeah, because none of them are that good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, respectable. So that's our 27. Let us know in the comments down below where you guys think all these players are going to go. We appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.